The Almost Perfect Podcast.
Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we're learning from Binwe Adebayo. Now, Binwe is an academic, a strategist, and a writer, which means she's currently a senior associate and strategist at Nicola Cooper and Associates, whilst doing her master's. She is doing her master's in cyber ethnography of Black Twitter. Do you have no idea what that means? Well, you will in just a little bit, because we get deep into it. We discuss a lot about Black Twitter. We discuss Twitter in general, and we discuss social media, its effect on your health, on your life. We get into influencers. We get into all the things social media related that you can probably think about. We get into quite a lot of it. So yeah, it was cool to have someone who knew a lot about this. And while I originally had the plan of chatting to Binwe about her life, about her upbringing, and all the different things that led her to where she's at, we mostly just focused on her opinions on social media for a long time. And then we learned a little bit about how she got to where she is in the last few years. Binwe is a bit of an overachiever, I would say. She's a graduate from Rhodes as a journalist. She did journalism at Rhodes, but then went on to work at City Press under Charles Blicknote, which we get into. We have a cool conversation about him and his mentorship at City Press, and then where she led to from there. She got into advertising, and we discussed advertising. We have a little bit of an argument, not like a real argument, but a bit of an argument about advertising towards the end. Because you guys know, well, I don't know if you know how I feel about advertising, but you'll get a feeling for how I feel about advertising in the podcast, and yeah, you'll get a feeling for how Binwe feels about all of it. But obviously, she works in the industry, so she's not going to hate it as much as I do. So yeah, we have a cool back and forth throughout the conversation. I get to learn a lot. You're gonna get to learn a lot about the way the internet works, about the way Black Twitter works, and just about the way things intersect. And, I'm really stoked that we get to have this conversation. As much as we didn't, learn about Binwe's upbringing and stuff, maybe one day we'll do that. Or we'll also, check in on how things have gone with her thesis, with her master's and everything. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think this podcast, you're going to get a lot of interesting information out of it, and some unique perspectives from someone who knows what they're talking about. So in just a little bit, you're going to get to hear that. But first, I got to come at you with the whole spiel about the social medias and the Patreons and all of that thing. So here it comes. You can just skip probably a minute and you can go straight into the podcast. But if you want to hear the spiel, here it comes. So if you like the podcast, you can like us on Facebook at the Almost Perfect Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at almost_podcast. Other than that, you can follow me on Instagram at Almost Perfect Bob, and you can subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform your heart desires. We are on Spotify, we are on iTunes, we are on Stitcher. I don't know why I'm saying we, because it's a one-man operation at the moment, but we're on all the major podcast platforms. You can find us on Google Podcasts and everything. And if you really like the podcast, then please, it really helps if you engage with stuff. So if you leave a review on iTunes, or if you subscribe, well, I said subscribe. If you give reviews, you can actually leave a comment on it. Even on Facebook, if you leave a comment on a post, if you see this on Facebook now, and that's how you got it, then just say, yo, I like this, podcast, just on the post. This was very informative, or anything like that, because then it helps it gets seen by more people, because engagement and interaction matters on the internet. You can also take it one step further. You can share it. You can share the podcast. You can just hit a young retweet, or you can just share on Facebook, either via the main pages or just on your own. Just take the link and just go, hey guys, I really like this podcast. You should hear it. Here it comes. And then they'll hear it. Hopefully. I mean, not everyone clicks on links, but some might. And then you can help me share this. And then lastly, if you want to get involved in Patreon, so it's a subscription service basically. So there's a $1 level, there's a $5 level, and you can ask questions, you can win stuff. I gave away a Harry Potter trading card game starter kit last month. This month I've got a Kit of Doom, a small woman's t-shirt. Yeah, this was something I was meant to give away on Durban Is Yours a while ago. And then Cam Lofstrand, last week's guest, he's actually giving me a signed Black Math CD as well as one of their new t-shirts to give away via the Patreon. So go and subscribe to that, patreon.com/almostperfect if you want to try and win something. And then at the same time, that money goes into making the podcast better. I'm just waiting for it to clear at the moment, and then I'm going to be getting some mic stands at the moment, and then I'm going to get some soundproofing, and then just slowly but surely improve the podcast. So if you want to get involved in that, if you dig the podcast that much, go on to patreon.com/almostperfect. I'll give you stuff back. You give me some cash. We can make this thing work together. One day it'll be a media empire. I'll be like, the Mark Maron of South Africa, and it'll be because of you and a little bit because of me. Anyway, here comes the Almost Perfect podcast with Binwe Adebayo. What's happening, Binwe? How you living?
Good. How are you?
I'm not too shabby. I'm a little bit stoned though.
That's fine. That's normal. Me too.
It's normal. Yeah, so you've quit drinking like last year.
Yeah, I did. I have always been quite like a big partier and quite a big drinker. And I love it, and I love going out and stuff, but I just had so many other goals that I wanted to work on this year that I was just let me try and move that out of the way and see what that does for my focus and my health and my creativity, and it's been cool. Yeah.
I would assume that's all been positive.
Yeah, mostly I think any kind of big change that you make, especially something that you've been doing for a long time, it is a period of adjustment. So you have to figure out how you're gonna go out, and you will be sitting at dinner and you feel having a glass of wine, and you have to mentally undo that. But I mean, it's always worth it. Sometimes I have FOMO on a Friday night, and on Saturday morning I'm thank God. I feel so good. So yeah, it's been rad.
But you're also quite a goal orientated person, so I can imagine having the goal of not drinking must also be a motivator.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think but specifically for me, it was the one thing that it didn't seem to be able to do. So there was a point in my life where I'd be yeah, I'm gonna slow down, and then I just wouldn't. So I was okay, I felt I was in a place in my life where I was clear enough to actually pursue that goal properly. So that's been good. I've surprised myself because I didn't think I would last this long. Yeah.
Dope. And so what are your plans for this year that you decided you need to focus?
Yeah, so I am doing my master's, which is very intense for me right now. I've just finished my proposal, and that's kind of doing cyber ethnography studies on Black Twitter, and
so what is ethnography?
So ethnography is basically a research method or research set of methods that's focused on the individual as a research instrument. So instead of analyzing things or observing and making conclusions, you live within a society. So anthropologists obviously use it a lot, but obviously cyber ethnography is the same kind of thing. So you're a participant and an observer at the same time, except online. So generally in communities where you are either super comfortable or not comfortable at all, you tasting something out for the first time. So
and I take it you'd be fairly comfortable within Black Twitter.
I mean, yeah, I am Black, first of all. And I mean, I think it's just, for me, this thesis was so about so much about how connected I felt to that space and how comfortable I felt in that space, and how even when people were arguing with you, and it's people reasonably well online or offline arguing with you, it's I learned so much about what my actual opinions are on things, and I felt I made such amazing connections with people. And it's just it's cool because there isn't sort of any kind of offline iteration like that, where there's a collective of so many Black people having conversations and feeling completely different to one another at one moment, and then being oh, we were all raised in the same household. You didn't defrost the chicken. We all felt that as a global Black Twitter community because we all know it. And that's really cool to me. And I want to understand what's going on in there without making conclusions, just celebrating it for what it is in academic research.
So you're just going to be making notes of what it is?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple ways people do that. Some people a sort of Dear Diary thing. That's not really my vibe. I'm already tweeting. That's enough writing, I think. So I'm just going to have voice notes and obviously delicious like aggregates tweets and organizes them. So I'm going to use that as sort of a digital platform, and just be really honest about it. Like put up a pinned tweet and say to people like, this is what I'm doing for my thesis, because I also don't want people to be like, oh, you're manipulating your ability to be in this community to like share your research with like the white academy, because like that's stuff I've thought about. Obviously I didn't just like choose anything. So it's important to me that people like understand that my intention is just to like hang out and be somewhere where I'm comfortable, and also make the academy take seriously what is being said by like regular young people just trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what like blackness means and raising children means, and like how we interact with different people, how we interact in and amongst ourselves. Like there's a lot to unpack there, and like the stuff we have, like the Rainbow Nation and that shit, like it just doesn't have the range for what's going on. So
no, not at all.
You know, I just want to be part of like even just archiving and documenting conversations that happened, you know, amongst people that I consider to be my community at this point in time. That's I think the aim, which I didn't really know until I said it to you right now.
With online communities though, there is a lot of crossover. So like, you know, you brought up the Rainbow Nation, and I think online is one of the places that we can see that it hasn't necessarily worked. But at the same time, there is still unity. Like, but as much as we are divided, it is this weird space where like you can like see where the battle lines are clearly drawn between people.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's so like exciting and also frustrating about this research, is that like even when I had to start trying to define the space for the purposes of like communicating it to a research committee or whatever, like it's so hard, because it's one of those things like, you know, when you're in a particular community on Twitter or whatever community, and you know when you're out of it, but you don't know what the portal is or the password is. You're just kind of existing in it. So we don't really have a lot of ways that explain it. And like somebody on Twitter was saying the other day, that, you know, there's more than one black Twitter, and some of them intersect and some of them don't. And then I was like,
that.
Whoa. And I suppose that's the case for a lot of different spaces, because there are macro communities and then there's micro communities, and we all sort of watching this unfold in real time. And I think that's really cool and interesting.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's super, like, it is just super fascinating that we get to observe like humanity unfold, like, and in front of our own eyes. It's something that, you know, you could read history books and go like, hey, because even at the back in the case, so the thing is we can all observe it now, whereas back in the day, you know, these things were only in newspapers, or they were only in books, they were only in places where that knowledge wasn't even observable or accessible, 100%. And it was always put out in a way that, you know, it definitely wasn't democratized. So do you see like the internet becoming like a tool for democracy, or like social media?
Oh, I don't know.
Or is it more the other way that we can be controlled a lot more now?
I think it's, and this sounds like such a like politically correct answer, but it's somewhere in between that. It's tricky, because for me, like even just politically, the whole idea of democracy and development and rights and all of those things are shaped by a very particular kind of knowledge and understanding of how society should operate. Yeah. And yet obviously lived experiences are showing us that maybe the models we had for even measuring this shit is wrong. So when I have to think about that, and I'm like, is the internet helping me or is it hurting me? Which is really the essential baseline of a lot of these conversations. Yeah. It's to rethink for myself what it means to feel helped by a situation. So I may not make money off the internet. So some people do. I don't really make that much money off the internet.
But has it not allowed you to make money?
I don't know, but
with the right people.
I guess, but that's a question always then of like, is it the sort of medium, or is it me? Is it the content that I'm sharing? You know?
Yeah, there's this big argument we had in the comedy group like about it. It's like, because I was saying that, hey, like I've gotten a lot of work out of Twitter, and then eventually like people were like, no, you just got a lot of work. Twitter was the vehicle you used to do it. But like I still do see it obviously as a very useful tool. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, like I think there are rules to the way it works, like beyond the sort of social stuff. There are functional things that you can do to make your chances better or worse. Somebody was saying today that J-Lo has like 4 million followers, but only 400 retweets, and that's how she knows celebrities by followers. And I was like, yeah, like she kind of bought into our idea that obviously J-Lo would have 4 million followers. So no one really thought okay, she probably bought them, but you can see from levels of
But
engagement,
it's
so
also,
you
why
know
would
what
you
to do.
follow J-Lo unless she's providing good content?
I guess. But I think for me, it's just like, at the end of the day, you can have really good content, but if you don't have an idea about like who you should be speaking to, it's not going to work out for you. And maybe that's an over strategic position to take, and maybe people are just winging it. But there is some things to be said for, like, you know, those memes where it's like, tell me 3 things that come to mind when you think about my tweets.
Yeah.
And generally people are quite spot on, because they understand that in as much as we're just people rolling around having a conversation, you're also directing very key issues, which I'm sure just have to do with who you are and what you're interested in. But at the end of the day, you've converted that into commodifiable, bite-sized, delicious, hilarious content for people.
It's your brand.
Yeah.
And like, that's the frustrating thing for me, is just to accept that we are all brands, myself included. Like, because we are the commodities now. Like that is what's changed with social media, I guess, is like more and more we're selling ourselves like as these products, not just as labor anymore. Like, we are now the actual,
we're
like,
doing
thing.
affective labor. We're not doing the physical labor anymore. But even the physical labor related to the internet is like really messed up, you know, like the fact that like most of the click farms that are used by like the big 4 digital all happen in India. Like, why why are we okay with that? So I mean,
it's the Asian countries in general are the reason for our technological revolution, essentially. Like, the reason why the rest of the world gets to have so much fun and good times on the internet and with our cell phones and everything is because of people who are poorer than us.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, my point there was sort of that this isn't just an online dimension of our normal consumption habits anyway, to the extent that now we're just consuming the time of somebody else who has to do the technical work, while we get to kind of enjoy the vibes and the memes. I'm uncomfortable with that, but I also don't think that that means that there aren't possibilities for doing useful things. Like, I'm not really one of those people who thinks like, you know, it's either like really terrible, it's really awful. I just think like everybody individually has to make a commitment to like what matters to them, what they think is at stake in the world, who they consider to be important, and then kind of make decisions from there.
And social media will help you figure that out.
Yeah, to an extent. It
can also get you caught up a little bit. So, but that's also the thing. I think you'll go through phases with it. There'll be times where you want people's, you know, affection and you want their approval. And so you're going to shift and you're going to change yourself. And then you're going to not like yourself because of that.
100%.
And then you'll find yourself. So, like, maybe, I don't know if that happens for everyone, but I know I've gone through that process and I've seen it happen to a lot of people.
I literally have, like, talking about not drinking, that's been one of the most interesting parts, and also really a blessing in terms of getting my head right to be a researcher in the space, is like, if I don't like the way somebody's talking to me, I don't feel like I owe them a response. I don't feel like I need to be sweet about the way I respond to nonsensical things. Like, my big thing is like, you'll say something and people will be like, so you're saying that, and I'm like, no boo, if I wanted to say that I would have said that. You know what I mean? I'm very exactly. So and I used to like get really worked up about that stuff, and I would be like, this isn't just ruining my day. And as I got clearer in my own head about what I needed to do in my day and who was important, what was important, being in that space was like more, I feel, a reflection of who I am offline. Because I think social media can also be a place where you perform a part of your life that you're not actually in touch with otherwise, which is sometimes a wonderful thing and sometimes it's not. But I think it's important that we are aware of our behaviors. And I suppose maybe on some level my thesis is also about that. It's like allowing me this other level of awareness while I'm in the space at the same time. It's pretty wild.
Does it not make you a little paranoid though? Like about your own actions?
I think I'm quite optimistic about myself. Like,
is it?
Yeah, I am. And I think I'm quite optimistic about other people. And I think I'm going to get stuff that really like surprises me positively. Just because I think that, you know, the one sort of thread that's coming through in the reading and like what I'm thinking about at the moment is this idea that even when people are arguing, they're still invested in the sustenance of a particular community. So you know, you can have an argument with somebody on Twitter and decide, okay, no, blocked, and that's it. Or you can decide that, cool, I liked what that engagement did for my brain and for the way I think, or I feel comforted, and so I'm going to continue to connect with this person. Because there's a sense that, like, we came here for that purpose, to hash stuff out. It's not that deep. But of course, for some people, it is that deep. But they should grow up, definitely.
Do you think social media can lead to decision overload? Like, cause stuff like that. Should I block this person? Should I engage? Like, what should I say today? You know, like, should I post this? Should I not post this? Like, all these different things. And we're constantly interacting, like, with, even should I like this post? Should I not like this post? Do you see that, like, interacting, like, with that? Like, how do you see that, like, effect on our brains?
I have two responses to that, which are purely, like, anecdotal. This isn't even what necessarily research tells us.
Yeah.
The first thing is to say that, like, from a personal perspective, I think, like, as I say, if you feel relaxed and you are relaxed and you feel very in touch with where you are mentally and emotionally, spiritually, whatever, that's the way that you interact with those decisions is extremely natural. But my other way of thinking about that is, like, it's quite perverse to me how many considerations there are about other people that you make in a day that have nothing to do with you.
But is that not being empathetic, like, just in general?
No, it could definitely be a waste of time. You know what I mean? Like, yes,
you don't have to have that for everyone.
You don't have to. And I think the more time you spend, or the bigger your network gets, and you have all of these followers, like, it can get a bit much. It can really get a bit much, to the extent that, like, you also hand over decision making to people you don't actually know that well. Like, I've definitely seen people be like, and maybe this is not a big deal for everybody, but, like, 2 grad outfits, like, choose this one or that one, and it's like thousands of retweets. And I was like, both of them are terrible. Like, why are people telling her? Like, but at the same time, like, I would just never do that. I might, like, as a joke, but certainly not like I'm going to go and do this, or 3,000 retweets, or I shave my head off. What do you mean? So I mean, that's the most extreme version of that, of course. But I mean, like, it's weird to me. It's really weird. I don't know.
Okay, so when you choose who you interact with and stuff, like, this could probably be an issue for people who, you know, start getting famous. So in the beginning, they chatting to people, you know, like, everyone who interacts with them, they've got the time to always, you know, get back to them. But then as they grow, they don't have time anymore to be able to interact with those original fans. That can obviously have a long-term negative effect. So, like, whilst they grow, they can actually lose their original fan base.
100%. But I think for some people, it really isn't about the people they're interacting with. They literally see them as just like another face behind a screen, and it's how many faces do I have that say follow me? Like, it's
I'm sure
crazy.
It's like that for some people, but I'm sure for others, like, you know, they're in it because they love, like, communicating.
I suppose. I think for me, it's just like, I've never had the idea that I would ever have a fan in my life, and I'm entirely sure that I don't. So I'm just, like, not concerned. You know what I mean? And maybe that's it, is that I think I feel very connected to everything that's going on, but I also am, like, super practical about, like, the extent to which communication is possible in certain spaces. And, like, yes, you create these bonds, and yes, you're sharing these, like, amazing moments with people, but there are very sort of material realities that intersect with them. Because, I mean, some people, it would seem to me, have really difficult situations, you know, in real life, and then, like, use Twitter and other spaces like that to discuss them and whatever. And sometimes that's very empowering, but it also doesn't change your situation. So sometimes I worry that there's an over dependence on those networks and those communities to kind of see you through stuff to an extent that they either can or they can't. And that's a complete gamble depending on the people you end up with and how much money they have and all of those things.
Yeah, I can see that. Although I think just as a space, like, if you're socially awkward, you know, to be able to talk in that, you know, freely, like, the internet's definitely become, like, this amazing space in terms of that, and that, like, like, you have a voice, you can find whatever community that is, like, if you're a little fucking weirdo, you can find other little fucking weirdos just like you.
Yeah,
and, like,
100%.
you can feel accepted, and you can feel a part of community, whereas, you know, before, like, I think a lot of people would have felt a lot more alienated. But then on the other side, you know, if you're not finding yourself in the communities, like, that you want to be a part of, or you are like, you know, partaking in communities that you think you're meant to be a part of. So like, say you're a black person and you want to partake in Black Twitter, but you find yourself on the outskirts of like all the opinions there, that can be very alienating.
Yeah, but I think that the net is very wide. Like obviously when I first got Twitter, I was like, okay, like I didn't know about Black Twitter at that point. I was in first year and I was like, this is boring. Like this is so boring. And then like I think probably around 2013, 2014 started getting back into it. And then like followed the right people. And then it was like, it literally was, as I say, like this force field lifted, and I was like, yes, this is the content I signed up for.
Is it like when you like fly into Wakanda?
Yes, like literally something like that. Like it was just like, okay, I get why people do this now, you know. But I don't think that's because, like, look, I think a lot of what we know about Black Twitter is dominated by a certain class level and English speaking dominated, as like pop culture connected Black person. And so when I think about Black Twitter, I'm also like, oof, which one am I talking about? Who is in, who's out, who's represented,
because you've obviously got like South African Black Twitter, and even within that you've got, you know, your different like you know, you got your Zulu Twitter, you got your Xhosa Twitter,
exactly,
and then also like, you know, you got your Niger Twitter, you've got like, so. And
what's fun for me, I suppose, is like obviously my mum's from Kenya and my dad's from Nigeria, is like,
so you intersect.
I do and I don't, because I've always lived here. I don't have particular frames of reference.
But does it allow you now to get a better understanding?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like I have at least some kind of virtual citizenship.
So I was going to ask you
countries.
about your heritage. And like,
and it's interesting because like sometimes I'll be talking about stuff in a particular way, and like somebody on Nigerian Twitter will like say some like anti-South African shit to me, and I'm like, but my brother, we're the same. Like we out here. But I realize that it's all about language. Like what we know about Black Twitter and the discourses are constructed through language and visual language. So there are just certain memes that you can look at and you know that they came from the States, or they came from, and so we're communicating in what one theorist, who is it, Althusser, calls interpolating ourselves into different communities and saying, I'm part of this, I'm not part of this. And even if I know genetically I'm Kenyan and Nigerian, like on Twitter there's no way for me to like communicate that to somebody, because like your physical body almost ceases to matter to the extent that you can or you can't communicate it. It's weird. It's really weird.
It depends though, because also like with your profile pic you can totally go like, this is my physical body, and then people judge you based on that
100%.
So you once again have the same issues that you have in real life, except with a lot more people who actually tell you how they feel about you.
And that's why, like, I mean, I was having a conversation with I think it was like we were having an interaction on Twitter, me and Tabo Bluebird, and he was saying like, because this girl posted a photo of Nadia and Akai with these super long dreads down to like, they were literally on the floor. Would I get them? No. But then this girl was like, why? And I was like, because she wanted to. Like, and then,
but also, if you're gonna throw a shade, at least be creative.
But and what Tabo was also saying at the time, and what I thought was so interesting, is he was like, but if we were to tune her because she's not a celebrity, then we're bullying her. And I was like, that's completely fair. Like, you felt like you could take an open shot at this girl who just got hair that she wanted. But if someone did that to you, it's like, oh, these people, it's just weird.
Yeah, people can't take it. It's like, but I mean, celebrities have always kind of been punching bags. It's just, people used to say it, you know, in their living rooms.
I guess.
Like, they wouldn't actually, or they'd write into the U magazine or whatever it is, you know, and have their little say about Jen and Brad's, you know, like relationship. But now, like, people can directly interact and just tell you, like, you know, fuck you, you know, you're shit.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like, it's also wild to me that people take time out of their day to do that. Especially those people who, like, follow someone to be rude. I'm like...
Hey, I get it. It makes you feel good about yourself to, to get, like, some of that anger that you have at the world out.
No, like, look, I'm definitely not going to sit here and act like I'm very cute and nice to people.
It's not healthy.
No, it's definitely not. And for me, it's like,
But we all get, like, some sort of good feeling.
Yes, but I think there's a difference. There's definitely a difference between like throwing a little bit of shade and being like, oh, you know, like, oh,
yeah, some people have problems.
But but not like, I'm not gonna like come for someone's life and be like, your daughter is fat. Like, what am I doing with my soul? Like, what, you know what I mean? I just think that kind of thing is weird. Like, you need to like get a life if you're doing that.
Okay, so speaking just now, we were talking about intersecting communities online. Can a black person not find themselves in black Twitter, and can a white person be a part of black Twitter?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm not
but what's your
qualified to
opinion?
answer that question.
Okay, not as a official answer, but what's your opinion?
I think, can a black person be outside of black Twitter?
I mean,
I think you can, but you would have to be by choice. I think it would be because you actively like, oh, the blacks. So you're like a coconut Kells, but like for real.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I do not want to be. And even then you will find your way into it one way or another.
Or I guess you would find your own subsection of black Twitter. Because I was just thinking of Big Daddy Liberty, like the guy who's, you know him?
No.
Oh, he's like on the right wing, like with, you know, the capitalist cats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, don't get me started on that today.
Yeah, so to me, like, you know, I would assume most of black Twitter probably wouldn't dig that guy. But there's obviously conservatives and, you know, libertarians.
But he would still be
within.
part of black Twitter. Because black Twitter is not just a bunch of people who like each other and agree with each other. That's exactly the point. So you are part of black Twitter. It's just if we were to do a poll of the members, whatever that means.
You just would be very popular member.
Yes, exactly. But you're still part of it to the extent that if your politics towards black people are whack, that's a black issue. Like, it's nobody else's issue. We as a community have to figure out what that means. And people have to have, so I don't think you can not be part of it.
black Twitter.
But so then that's why the question of like, can a white person be part of black Twitter is tricky, because it's like, I think there are subsections of black Twitter that are interested in white people, and therefore white people could cross over in there. There are others who are not. Like, they're just like,
no, I don't.
We don't get it. Like, and especially those people who go out of their way to try and either be cool with like black people in general, whether it's online or offline.
I had a person who I thought of when you just said that.
Yeah, well, I have a list. All those people who are just like so negative and like racist and gross and like bigoted and homophobic and all of that disgusting stuff, but are like so obsessed with those communities. Like, so you've weaseled your way into black Twitter or queer Twitter or whatever the case may be to be rude, but like, get over it, like live your own life, go back to white Twitter or whatever the other alternatives are. I don't know.
Cape Town Twitter. Like.
Yeah, exactly. But you like, clearly you mad, like you really are pressed, you want to be in here. So like that kind of person I think crosses into black Twitter, but like because they have their own shit that they need to deal with. Yeah, and like good luck to those people. We're praying for you.
Okay, so you're a strategist. What is that?
Oh, gracias.
Because I'm gonna assume obviously social media plays into part of it, but you wouldn't just say strategist if you were just a social media strategist. So you do a lot of different stuff.
Yes, so I do trend strategy. So I'm a senior associate at Nicola Cooper and Associates, and a lot of the work that we do there is not just trends as in like fashion, although sometimes it is. It's like sort of mapping
the future. Yeah,
exactly. Mapping political effects, social effects, pop culture effects, and trying to put those together in research and insights for different kinds of like business and personal problems. And I suppose the strategy part of that is answering how. So like, okay, we know the trends, we understand how they interact. What do we do now to get ahead of them or get around them if they're not ideal? And it is always a gamble, because like I'm using sort of inferences from the information that I have. Sometimes it's not complete, or, you know, life is changing consistently, but I think it's one of those things that if you do it often enough, you get an intuition about how things should play out, or at least you cover yourself with enough different options of how things could play out that you give your clients like suitable options.
So you got like plan A, plan B, plan C, yeah.
But I think for me, a lot of it is, about organizing my thoughts. So like my primary modus operandi, if you will, in terms of like any creative or work output, is the thinking part of it. It's extremely like cerebral, but it's also extremely organized. So I'm not creative. Like I'm not just like there's thoughts in my mind and I could paint a picture. I'm not that girl at all.
You're
and that's why
analytical about it.
Yeah. So everything in my brain is like, it is like crazy as fuck up there, but it's also just like pretty yeah.
Compartmentalized,
So
everything
when
is,
I
like,
need to, I
elaborate.
suppose strategy for me is an exercise in drawing what's in the archive into something that's tangible. And you, in that case, you're literally going from gas to solid. There's no testing ground. You are literally just taking what's in your head and what you've learned and your conversations with people, and then going, okay, this is what I think we should do. And I think it's something that's not necessarily like innate. I think that I have an organized brain, but I had an amazing like mentor and like support system. My old creative director, Kath at Retroviral, shout out. And she just like helped me discipline my brain, because I think that I was like very like all over the place, but I couldn't get my ideas together, and I always thought I was going to go the more creative route. And then she would just like throw strategies at me, and at first I was like, this is not my job, and then eventually I was like, cool, let me try this. And I just loved it. I literally loved it so much. I was like, okay, this also takes the anxiety of like doing it out of it. I just have to figure out how we do it. And yeah,
did you have your ego attached to like being a creative before? Like, 'cause like I know like for myself and for a lot of people, like, you know, when you are coming up, you know, when you're younger, you want to be this like creative type. You want to be a writer, or you want to, you know, just create stuff. But that isn't necessarily your strongest point.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not built like that. Because I'm like, I like back myself as a person, but I'm also very practical. I'm like, okay, how are we gonna pay these bills? Like, very practical like that. And I'm also just like, I was never one of those people who was like, I want to just like make art and like I'm happy to just like slum it if it means I'm doing what I love. I'm not that person. So I'm also always like quite acutely aware of whether something's a good fit for me or not. And there are things I do in my personal life, like cooking and baking and, you know, just creative stuff that I like to do. I read a lot, I listen to a lot of music, I watch a lot of films, like that are expressions of my creativity, but I've never attached them to like, these must be the functional ways that I live my life. I think they happen, but yeah, it's not really like a big thing.
So for you, it was easy just to go from creative to strategy.
Yeah, if anything, it was a relief, because it was like, I felt a lot of pressure when I did more creative work to sort of like be creative on demand. And I was like,
my biggest issue.
Yeah.
Like as a writer, that's your biggest problem is but you know, because you don't want to lean on your tropes.
Yes,
like
exactly.
I can bang stuff out like this
exactly.
But I always want to be creative about it.
Yes.
I always want to have stuff in everything I release, at least 1 or 2 sentences that I'm really happy with.
No, and I completely agree with you, and that's I think why I try and do different things. So like I do like my masters for like that academic side. I do strategy to organize my thought,
but I would
and
assume
then writing
those
is
two
just
crossover. Like
all three of the things that I kind of do.
Together.
Yeah, it's like, but they just different levels of where I'm engaging my brain. So my like academic brain is very like, nothing has to be proven. We are just exploring the world. And then strategy was like, okay, cool. What do we do with this? And then writing is a very sort of, I suppose, visceral human expression of that, which is still organized and it's still hopefully informed, but it's just like, okay, let's just live in this thing and
trying
go
to be
through
entertaining
it.
and
Exactly, and just being a human being and relaxing a little bit, because the other two are not relaxing at all. But I think I like that.
I
about
hate
them.
that you think writing is relaxing.
I do. I'll tell you why. Because I suppose it's because to the extent that training of any kind can help you, I was very lucky, like doing a B-Journ at Rhodes. Like, it's no degree is perfect, but I definitely felt like,
I mean, as journalism degrees go, that's where you want to do it.
Exactly. So I think that in terms of like that fear of like, oh, I'm gonna fail, I don't have that as much anymore, and I feel relaxed over that because I lean on the fact that I've been trained in what is required to get me to that point where I feel comfortable. So like as I've gotten older and I'm writing a cover story and I'm like, it's a cover. Like if people read nothing else, they're going to read this. And I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? And then I just try and get into it and not stress so much.
It's weird. Like I don't necessarily stress like about whether or not it's going to be good, because like I'm sure it will be fine. Like, you know, like
that's good. I never feel like that. I always assume it's going to be Armageddon, every piece of work.
Like I know how to write. Like it's, for me, it's more just the having deadlines thing are both a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like I am amazing. Like I will, so the way I write is probably like for anything takes me like a week. So I'll start the day I get it, write a couple hundred words or whatever. Or like if I'm listening to music, I'll start taking notes. I'll listen to a thing. The next day I'll do a little bit more. Next day I'll do a little bit more.
Really?
And
I've
then,
never done that in my life. I'm literally like such a last minute person.
And then at the last minute,
Yeah.
I'll spend like the last hour, like just before the deadline, like literally just taking everything I've done over
Yeah.
the last week and just go, cool, how does this work now?
Yeah.
And then put it all together.
Yeah.
But like I'm
But
doing
it's the
that
how
every
does it
day.
work thing that I suppose when I say writing is relaxing is because I'm approaching it strategically, and I'm approaching it like with an academic mind that says, okay, what is the question I'm trying to ask? What are the things that I need to do to ask that question? Like it's very
See, I
do you
don't
know what
I don't
mean?
enjoy that process.
Like I
'cause
have
I do the same thing.
yeah.
But like for me, like when I don't have a point to prove is when I enjoy writing the most. So, or not a point to prove, but like when I've got to write about
No, I
something,
understand what you
like
mean, yeah.
it's a bit more of a annoying thing for me where like, you know, it's a bit more stressful because it's like now I've got to actually like describe this thing, tell people what it's like, you know, and like I'm sure I'll be fine at it. I've done it a million times. But the actual process of doing that, just the thinking about it, because now I'm going to think, cool, what do I like about this?
Yeah.
You know, like what am I trying
Yeah.
to say? Whereas sometimes I enjoy work when I just like, I'm starting a new website where I'll have some of this up where I'm just doing creative writing now and just like,
Sick.
yeah, like have no nothing. Like I don't start with like a point at all.
No,
and
look,
just
I
go
think
for it. And I've
that's-
been enjoying that. So
Yeah,
that's the
no,
kind of writing I
I
enjoy.
completely agree with you. And like, I mean, I go to therapy. Shout out to therapy.
I'll get there one day.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really amazing. And I mean, that's like mainly what I talk about in therapy. Is just like I'm a very like not uptight person, but very type A. I like things organized, whatever. But I'm also like that's, and I always used to like fight that. I used to think, oh, but you're a creative person. Like, why don't you let go a little bit? And I'm like, not everybody can be type B. Like, you have to have some type A people. And like for me, it's like, oh, this is going to sound like so schmarmy, but just go with me for a bit. So Arsene Wenger did this really great interview. I can't remember with which magazine. And he said, like, I'm not the person, like I'm not the star, like I facilitate what is beautiful and what is good in other people. And I was like, I don't want to go that far, like I'm not Arsene Wenger, but like the point is that it's that I don't care to be the person who's like the most creative or the most interesting or the most good looking or the most whatever. I'm happy to do work that means that we all get a like bigger share of like wonderful things. And also like I think I feel my most relaxed when there is some level of structure. So it's not about doing it because I don't enjoy relaxing and like, you know, especially when you stop drinking, I think people think you hate fun. And it's like, I like fun. I just don't need to be like hungover. Or I just
you
don't
can
need
have
to
plenty of fun without
you know?
drinking. Like, I don't drink anywhere near as much as I used to, as anyone who knew me before knows now, because it was clearly apparent that I drank too much back in the day.
Yeah.
But I have so much fun now, just like literally playing like board games and stuff. I've got a collection. I invite people
Exactly.
around now.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have a good time, like
Exactly.
just playing board games.
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to wild out. And,
Exactly.
You know,
like wilding out is fun. Like I do enjoy
there's
that.
a time and a place.
But yeah, it's just like I don't need to be having that energy. And just like I feel like my sleep has gone better. Like I'm just like, and I'm a very moody person. Like I can go from being like super chill.
You and I are both the
to,
same
like,
way like
yeah.
that. Like,
And then suddenly I'm just like, I'm annoyed and like, don't text me, don't speak to me, just leave me alone. And like,
what causes that? Is it just
It's
some
deep.
days? Like,
it's just, I think it's just like, look, it's actually very simple for me. And it's like, this is my vibe. It's like, I'm a very direct person. I think I communicate my energy very clearly.
yeah,
You know?
there's no pretenses. with you.
Yeah, you don't have to guess. And I take that very seriously because it's not even just like a negative thing. It's like, if you're my friend, you're never sitting there going, oh, are we friends or not? Like, you know,
Exactly.
right? And so when I get energy that's not like that, where people are just like confused or like stunting or like, I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like I have a very, I don't know, maybe I should be more patient, but I'm just like, you must just figure out what you want to do in your life. And even in work, I'm just like, get it together and then let me know what you want to do.
It's kind of why, like, I realized why people didn't like me back in the day. It was just because it was like I was just a bit direct about like not really needing them to be around me.
Yeah.
Like saying like, hey, like it's cool that you're living your life, but I don't need you here. Like we don't have to be friends. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, and
You don't have to hate me for
love
that.
people. I love people to death, and I'm like,
Oh,
also,
I love some people.
yeah,
and
like
that
I'm
list
like,
gets smaller
I
every day.
really like, I gush over people. I love people.
The people
like
that
I'm obsessed
yes.
with people, and I like love to make new friends and just feel like, oh my gosh, I needed this person in my whole life. But it's just like, because of that, I have a very unfair expectation of the same like level of affection.
Oh,
and
you want
attention.
people to hype you up
yes,
as well.
I'm like, I'm literally like ride or die, you know, to an extent. Like,
I get
but
that.
I just don't like it when I'm like, this, you giving me wishy-washy.
I'm the same. Like, actually, like, cause yeah, like I hype people hard, and then like I get very hurt when like I don't get the same like energy back. I'm just like, yeah, I wasn't hyping you because I wanted to be hyped back, but like it would be nice.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's like you don't always want to go to the party, but you want to be invited. That's my chance, you know. So yeah, I just like I don't know. I think like lately, like the people I have around me, which is like really good people, it's like people who've survived many years of having to put up with me being moody.
So you know they're real.
Yeah, I know that they're real, and they also don't take themselves or me that seriously. Like I have friends who just like, I'll just be like, you're sulking. Like I sent my friend Cedric a message today, and then he was like, just stop being a baby. And I was like, I need that. That's what I need. I don't need people to like let me do that shit. Just like call me out and let's keep it moving. Like I like that kind of light, cool, just let's be real energy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Although it's not everyone can be that way, I guess.
Yeah. No, they can't. And that's why we're not friends.
So you're speaking about your one boss at Retroviral before. Yeah. You've actually had some pretty cool bosses. Charles Blichnout as well.
Yeah. So he was my first editor when I came out of university, and I went to City Press, and I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, straight to City Press, like from university. That's really dope.
It was wild. And he was just like so attentive and so like invested in understanding me as a person and as a writer, and like investing time out of his day, which was extremely busy, to like teach me things. And like that doesn't happen often. Like
he really cares.
Yeah, he really cares. And like he would literally every week when we were subbing the stories, he would like sit with me and sub so that I could see what he was like changing. And like especially if you've come out of roads journalism, like obviously people know like roads journalism is rad, so you think like, yeah, I got this. And like I learned so much more in that 1 year just from like that hands-on approach, and like somebody who also knew what kind of work I wanted to do, what kind of work I wasn't trying to do. And also just like, you know, I was doing books writing and books reviewing and editing, and I just like that ability to like, as part of my job, just read beautiful things was such a gift for someone to give you like at the beginning of your career.
Yeah. Because it's obviously going to improve your writing no matter what.
Yes, exactly. And it was just so cool. Like,
and it makes you engage critically with the
work. Yeah. And like so supportive, such a supportive person, and somebody I still like am in touch with, because I really appreciate when people take that time out. Because we've all got stuff going on. And like I suppose interns and, you know, new writers come and go. So it's like rad to, after all this time and like all of his experience, to still be invested in seeking people out who really want to try and do well in this space.
I think he believes in investing in the future, and that's the way he can do it. So it's probably by like, you know, just teaching the youngsters. Yeah. Like I'm going to get him on this podcast one day.
You have to. Oh my gosh. I want to make a guest appearance for 5 minutes on that episode.
Like just some of the stories I've heard him tell me, like when I've been around like him and Roger Young. It's just like, wow, that's lit. I thought I've lived a life. Yeah. Like, but no, he has those two, and but the amount that he gives back is just quite phenomenal with City Press. Yeah. But what made you eventually leave City Press? What made you go corporate?
I'm a sellout. I'm a straight edge sellout. No, I literally it was very technical. It was a situation where I had a 1 year contract with City Press. I just moved to Joburg. I like nice things. And both of us at the time when I was about to leave weren't sure whether there would be space for me to stay, and I like just also wanted to try different things because while I was at Rhodes, like I was also like I was editor of the one of the campus newspapers, and I was also like super engaged and stuff, and I like wanted to see if like journalism was like the thing I needed to do, if there were other things that I should do. And I got this amazing job doing like social media for the South African Book Fair while I was working at City Press. Charles put me onto that also, holla. And like I really enjoyed that, so I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And I applied to this agency and went and worked there, and it was fucking intense. It was the most intense year of my life.
You know, when someone doesn't say the name, that it's
yeah, like I don't know, like that's just not me. Like I definitely like I would love to just like drop a name right now.
Oh no,
but
don't.
That's
like
not
I'm just
my
saying,
energy.
you just know when someone like omits a name, you know, like something was shit.
It was. I'm gonna leave it at intense because it was like, yeah, it was cuck in a lot of ways, but I also.
It showed you what you didn't want out of the industry. And
yeah, but also like I must say, like for all the faults of whatever was going on there, I was also like given a lot of opportunities. And like, as I say, Kath, who was my CD at Retroviral, was my head of content at this first agency. So like we worked together.
You made the
for
contact
years. That's
before.
where we made contact. And I like one of my friends, Abs, who runs the digital thread, like she's an amazing account director, like, and I had these people around me and this team around me that was amazing, and we were all just doing this like crazy work and crazy hours and like the quintessential like gulag agency experience. And like the bosses who like really like pushed me and gave me a lot of opportunities, but it was just like intense. I was really like I was 21, 22 at that point. Like I'd been living in Joburg for 8 months. Like I don't know, like I was not prepared for this. I was going out like every night,
and Joburg can eat you up.
Yeah, and I was just like living my best life, but also living my worst life, and like making more money than it ever made, and just like out here on Superbalist and just doing the most. And then I went to Retroviral after that, and that was like, okay, just like where I needed to be.
So yeah, how did you get involved with Retroviral? Because that was a pretty cool company.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty new at the time.
Yeah,
like,
I mean they'd been going for like seven years by that point.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, 7 years.
Oh wow, my perception of time was so fucked up.
Yeah,
I thought I remembered when Mike had started that. Yeah, like, and then they did the 5 Gum stuff.
Yes,
and
yeah. And like he was obviously also part of Webfluential and that stuff. But yeah, so basically I left this agency. Kath had left just before me, and I think like by that point we were getting into a little bit of a groove of how we like to work, and like sort of like, you know, those old agency types where you have like people who work together and you have your team and you like to just like roll with each other. And so yeah, I went and did some other stuff. I like chilled out for the first time in like so long.
Yeah, so what were you doing at these agencies? What was your job?
Oh, so I started an agency as a community manager, and then there was another head of social media that didn't.
Like, isn't it?
Yeah, it was wild. It was a very wild time, and
I've freelanced it once or twice. Yeah, and no thanks.
And we were a little bit under resourced. There was a lot going on.
You're always under resourced when you're doing community management.
And then like I was working really hard, and as I say, Kath was throwing strategies at me. So then there was a head of social media who left, and then I got promoted, and I remember being like, because I think I just
then obviously
like
having
22.
the strat stuff must have helped.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was like,
but that's a big title for a 22-year-old.
Exactly. So I was like,
but also it also makes sense because you're in the, you know, you're in social.
You're in it. It's like, and I think that was what was necessary at that time. Like I think if I were to be a head of social somewhere now, like what I was bringing to the table would probably be a little bit dated. But when you're 22 and you've, as I say, it just moved to Joburg, I was like so embedded in like what was going on in like Joburg because of like also working as a journalist, and I like knew a bunch of people like and that influencer thing was starting to get really popular, and I like knew, like I had a black book from when I was at City Press, and I knew who to call to get a number, and it just, I don't know if I was like the best technically, but in terms of what they had to like who they could choose, but I definitely think I was like in the right place at the right time. And so that would continue to be wild, and then like I like just needed to like work on myself and slow down a little bit. And Kath had, as I said, left just before me. And then, yeah, she went over to Retroviral, and me and Mike Sharman I think we'd had a conversation around that time, but at the time, I think what he had was like a senior community manager, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to do that anymore. I wanted to go more strategy. I was like, let's just do this. And then like literally like a couple months later, he was like, okay, cool, I have this role for you. And then I started like in a month, and I was there for a year until I decided to do my masters. And I always say, like, probably if I didn't go and do my masters, I would still be at Retroviral, because it was like, you worked hard. Like, let me not even play with you. Like, Mike's really fun and like cool, but you work hard. But it was like you could try anything. Like, no idea was too crazy. Like, we did the Survivor billboard where like,
I saw that,
where we literally had the contestants on a billboard playing Survivor challenges. And I remember Mike telling us this idea, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I went into like a logistical apoplexy. I was just like, where are they going to shit? Where are they going to, like, how is this going to work? But
also,
it was
the
such a good,
needed.
yes, like what if someone does? But he was so good about just like being like, I mean, let's try it. And I'm so not like that, but I think it made me more fun working there. And we also just had a good time. Like, we had good conversation, and I really loved the team that I had there. Yeah, and I think they do really good work. I think they do really, really good work.
You mentioned influencers just now. What are your thoughts on the whole thing? Because my idea is that we've always had the thing of influencers. Yeah. Like, because I come from the skateboarding community. Yeah. Where sponsored people are literally
and
a
like
part
basketball,
of the...
sports has always had
exactly,
that. Yeah.
like my Adidas, like, you know, Run DMC from back in the day. Like, there's always been these associations, but it was always kind of with people who were, you know, actually famous, I guess, or actually like doing something. Yeah. And these days, I guess a lot of the criticism with influencer culture is that it's just people, you know, living a good life that's being paid for them, and like they're just now.
I have a lot of thoughts which are actually becoming clear to me right now. The first is to say that I don't understand influencers in the West. Like, I don't understand the purpose of that, because you already have like a culture of like mega fame. You already have that. I don't get that. But I understand in the context of like perhaps more in the global South, where the influence you did have was predominantly Western, why I like the idea of your aspiration being centered around more local people. Yeah, people, and yes, they might just be refractions of Western ideas. They may just be copycatting. I like the idea that you are tied to your localness to some degree. And I think that, look, advertising in all of its form has always projected kind of monolithic, collective, commodified ideas about how people should live and conceptions of the good life. I like the fact that there's more options. So there's different people living their lives. So like some of the people I follow, like there's these two brothers who are like covered in these sort of like tattoos of different ethnic origin, and they just like live this life, and like they live in Brazil and then they live in Indonesia, and they're just living this life, and they're all just about like connection to the earth and all this stuff. And I'm like, who is paying for this stuff? Who's paying for these beautifully shot professional
that's what I'm thinking.
And then I follow like Kylie Jenner, who I love, and I love when she posts photos of like her and Travis, and I love that like hyper capitalism stuff. And I'm just like, well, at least I get to choose. It's not this like one 50s housewife-esque, you know, cook for your man bullshit. Like, I have the option to be like, I don't care, I'm a Clementon and I've had my body genetically engineered to be sexy. Like, I love that.
So you're stoked you have the choice of who like tries to advertise to
yes you now. exactly like
that sounds like dystopia to
and
me.
Also it is that. I mean, I'm very realistic about that. I'm very realistic. I'm like, this is choose your own adventure. All of them end in a fiery death, but I'm choosing which way I go down. Like, there's I think it's crazy. And I think it's also just I'm extremely aware of how fake it is because I'm engaged in it to a degree for a living.
I'm always like, just like, I hate it so much.
Yeah, I just think
And
it's like, so I know when something's been like edited to within an inch of its life, or like tweets that like, you didn't write this tweet. I think everybody kind of knows.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, if you're aware of what it is, it's like anything. Just, it's any vice. You know it's not good for you. But if you're enjoying it right now, I don't have a problem with that, because life is fucking horrible.
But but what do you think of like everyone just being commodities now? We kind of brought it up earlier, but like influencer culture, like we were saying everyone was a brand, but like influencer culture takes everyone being a brand to that next level where it's like you're a commodity now. Like
I'm gonna say something which I don't think people are gonna agree with me on. My reality is like, when I look at the influencers that I follow, even just locally, some of them have like what is so obviously extreme access to wealth to begin with.
Yeah.
So they are just basically building on that to now, make themselves commodities. There are other people who I think, what would they be doing if they weren't an influencer? And I'm comfortable with the fact that they have something to make a living from. And at the end of the day, I'm choosing to follow. I'm choosing to buy in. So
actually,
I mean,
could I ask a question of what is an influencer?
Um,
From a strategist, from someone who's, deep in Black Twitter, from someone who engages with the internet so much, like what do you define an influencer as being?
Look, I think we're using the term sort of very loosely here, but I think that there's
in terms of people who work with brands.
Yeah, sure. But what I mean is that there's people who have hyper visibility but no influence.
Yeah.
And there's people who have impact, like massive undercurrent, tectonic plate influence, like Desire and Fela from Faga. That's influence. That's impact,
And what's dope about them is they've never shifted. Like they've been consistent from the get-go. Like I've followed Desire since Vega days. You know, like
Nakane. People who are just like that, to me, it's
authentic.
That's influence. I love that. Then there's people who are just, and even like Googs M, my girl. Like I just think her brand of just like, what did you just say? And like making people double check like what they thinking. I love that. That's influence to me. But if you're just everywhere and you're actually like a Centrum ad, I don't understand why you're at the top of my Twitter every time I log in. I don't see that as influencing. I think influencing is when you either are refracting a consciousness that people have and they're like, yes, somebody who's representing my positionality, or you are poking at a conversation that isn't being had, that needs to be had. So like what constitutes manhood, what constitutes womanhood, what
but then
constitutes
as a brand
language.
trying to get involved with that, like
that's between them and the influencer. Like I think I like to believe that the people who are truly engaged in doing these things for the right reasons generally shy away from stuff that like almost is a mockery of what they're about. And yeah, it's complex, because I also just don't think that brands are inherently evil. Like I just don't believe that.
Yeah, we're on the other side of things. Yeah.
I don't. Like I understand why people think that, and most of them perhaps are. But I'm aware of the fact that as a person who's worked within one, sometimes you have moments where you like, I mean, I remember when we were working on Russell Hobbs and we'd like put together the script for a campaign video, and we were all thinking about it. Like there was nothing nefarious or manipulative about it. It was literally just a bunch of creative people.
You're still trying to sell people a product that they like.
Sure, but what we were appealing to, I think, is real. What we were appealing to, because it resonated with us. And there were moments in that process and in many of these processes where the product is actually just a kind of visual springboard to a whole bunch of other consciousnesses that you're wanting to have and conversations you're wanting to have.
Sure, but when you attach that to a product, though, when you attach that to something that people can buy, like, isn't that disingenuous? Isn't that...
No, because at the end of the day, I believe in extreme degrees of free will. Even though I'm a reasonably devoted and spiritual person, I believe at the end of the day, I can sell you the best ad and you just don't want it. Similarly, there are some things that don't need selling that are not good for people either.
Sure, but I mean, advertising does use psychological like ticks. It does prey on people's weaknesses.
I don't know if that's praying. Maybe you just need to get stronger as an audience member. That's my energy, because I just don't think
but
it's
not
like
everyone has access to getting stronger.
No, but I think that's even just in terms of what we know about advertising, and even that thing about, like, you know, if you watch like violent video games, you'll be a serial killer. I think that sort of 1950s effect tradition that
you don't think advertising has an effect?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this kind of Clockwork Orange, you know, now it's in my subconscious. It removes agency from people, and so I'm not willing to go that far. Because I want to give people agency, because I think that
you can have agency, but have your agency incredibly influenced.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
I'm very
like,
comfortable with that, because I don't think that's any different from human relationships. Because my ability to, for example, engage with a person has to do with my ability to latch on to cues that they either have or they don't have. So I can be like, Bob, I hate you, right? And that's good, may have a effective view of what, 2 out of 10. Hope it's higher, but let's say 2 out of 10. That's a very different relationship versus if somebody else, you know, who's very close to you says that to you. So we always engaged in these kinds of push and pulls between how connected and how distant we are from something.
Sure, but like we actually actively make those choices to interact with people, whereas you don't necessarily.
Do you?
Yes,
you?
a lot of the time, yes.
Okay, so you stay in a shitty job, right? With a horrible boss for 2 years because you need to put food on the table, right? For me, that's no difference from choosing an influence you know is bad for you.
No, look, to me, I was thinking more of like, I don't get to choose like the adverts I see every day. Like, you know, the stuff like that's getting
but I mean,
like,
there are things that if it concerns you that your brain is being so awfully corrupted, there are things you can do.
But you don't really know that you're being corrupted a lot of the time.
I don't think so. I think you need to give people more credit. And I'll tell you why. Because also what we know about this from the research in terms of how people respond to stuff that's inauthentic, especially younger people who are not just early adopters of technologies.
It's clued up younger people though.
No, it's not necessarily. The relationship that people have even visually to things affects the way that they engage with them. So for example, if I've never seen a cell phone in my life and I'm now presented with it and everything that's attached to it, it's overwhelming, right? Yeah. But if it's something that even if I don't engage with it peripherally, I understand it as a concept, it's going to affect my ability to engage with it. So for example, in my lifetime, when I started watching TV or whatever, let's say I was 5, probably younger than that, and I'm engaging with advertising, I loved it. My parents said like I would just watch TV for the ads and I would just be like, wow, this is amazing, whatever. And now we have phenomenon like banner blindness where people literally don't even see the ad. Yeah. We have things like PVR that allow you to skip them because people literally realize this is content designed. It's literally the way you can conceptualize in your mind, like, okay, the 5 seconds before you can skip an ad on YouTube, right? I don't know if that's an extremely conceptual cerebral process. It's just a defense mechanism your body creates.
Oh, no, I don't want this.
I don't want this. I don't even want to know what it is.
But that's because of saturation.
Yes, but that's my point, is that as we are more saturated, I don't believe that we're more affected. I think that we're more desensitized.
Maybe, but then advertisers are trying to find new ways to trick us.
Yeah, but we're not doing very well. I mean, you see the ads on TV, we're not doing very well. And that's,
I mean, I don't have a TV, so, and partially because of advertising.
Well, I mean, any form of advertising.
The way I interact with like with my media.
Yes.
There's like I've got ad blockers on fucking everything. Yeah. Like I don't see ads as much as I can. I don't mind it.
I just want to see, like, because I'm constantly in sort of a metacritical thing of like, okay, I'm looking at this as myself. I'm looking at this as somebody who would have made this. What do I think?
Yeah, that's the thing. You're in the industry.
But I also know that's not how other people engage with it. But what I was going to say about that is I think that even the influencer market, and that's why I say it's such a fuzzy definition, is reaching a point of diminishing returns to the extent that the saturation of all of these people refracting all of these choices that I'm talking about that I love so much, is that I actually get to a point where I'm like, I don't want to see any of you. I don't want to see I don't want to see one more flat tummy tea. I'm done. Everybody's cancelled. So there is a tipping point at everything.
I mean, I have that just with my friends who just find themselves being like, you know, little social media celebs, and just like, you know what, it's cool. I'll just mute you for the next few months.
Yeah,
It's
that's
check
fine.
back in a
and
little
that's
while.
fine. Like, I definitely have friends. I'm like, friend, you don't act like this in real life. But I'm like, WYD. But I'm like, that's fine. But what I mean is that there's an extent to which the amount of information we have about advertising, both researched and anecdotal, allows us to be able to spot stuff. So even if it's just because we've seen an ad, so we know the format, we know what's going to happen. They're going to ask you a question. Do you suffer from this? You know that's an ad before I even carry on that conversation.
I mean, I knew about that because of Chris Rock. Like,
I mean, you know what I mean? So
it's such a evasive part
exactly.
of things that, like even comedians are making jokes about
Exactly. So my point is that even with this influencer thing, you know somebody is just posting as an influencer before, and so you're making that choice to say, I'm going to suspend disbelief and I'm going to go on this whatever weird, you know, refracted journey this is of your life where you're always happy. Like, one of my favorite Instagram accounts is this lady called Jessica in Australia, and she's a like dietitian, and she's really healthy, and her books are fantastic. And she wrote this post about like how her best friend had died, and then like actually just yesterday she was saying like there are days like I like never thought I'd get through this, and I was like, what? I almost felt like I'd been sold a bad product, and I was so distanced from my humanity in that moment that I was really disappointed with myself, because I was like,
would you not appreciate that?
I was like, Jess, I needed you to be making like a smoothie bowl today. I needed you to be, you know what I mean? Because we've started to attach. As that's what I was saying, I've started to attach the work of doing that stuff, of motivating me, to her. And so when she was a real person, I was like, and that's why like I love.
That's why you need to follow the Rock instead. Yeah. He'll never disappoint you.
You know, and like that's why I loved Bonang's interview of Cosmo, where she was like, at the end of the day, I'm a human and it hurts me. And like, she is very much a block and carry on kind of person, and I really love that energy. But when she said that, I was like, it was almost like it didn't, the way people think that vulnerability takes away from your wholeness, it didn't. I was just like, she's still a boss. Like, she's still a boss. And I was like, people just need to be more aware. And it's unfortunate that she had to say, I'm still a human, for it to kind of rattle people. Like, that's really sad.
I mean, we do treat celebrities as though they're not, but they also project that they're not. So that's the dangerous thing, is you're presenting yourself as a superhuman, and so people don't see you as human anymore.
I don't know. I think if you have a reality show, it's a little bit different, because I don't know if you've ever seen Being Bonang.
I haven't, but I know how reality shows are written. Like, so.
But my point is that like I completely thought I had an idea of what this person was until I watched that, and I was like, whoa, like completely different.
But that's still written. It's still presented to you.
It doesn't matter. The point is that if you felt comfortable to open that window and kind of show me a different side, I cannot pretend that I didn't see that. You know what I mean?
See, I just see that as part of the strategy, though. Like, to me, like, I'm so cynical in that. Like, I'd be like, okay, now the show is going to be to show everyone you're more.
Oh yeah, like the Kardashians, and now I know she doesn't like celery. Like, there is that extreme, but I don't know. I don't.
Like with Celebritydom, I do like see like the PR people and the strategists behind everything.
Yes,
you know, like
100%.
I do see like all the moves that people make as being thought out.
Yes.
Like, just because of how I've been, like, I'm in the industry, you know,
Yes.
like I know how entertainment works.
Yeah.
I know like everything that's presented to you was thought about beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's why like I just feel, even with something where people are being sincere, it's because a team of people are like, we're going to be sincere now.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, one of the things, I was watching Life of Kylie yesterday, reruns, and she was talking about, because I think the show sort of starts taping when she first starts dating Travis Scott. You never see him in the show. He's never mentioned by name in the show. And shortly after is like when she's pregnant. And so the producer is talking to her and is like, okay, but this whole show is meant to be about you like exposing your life, but we can't film everything. And she was like, yep. So like I think people are also getting to a point where they're like, you literally see every minute of my life. Like you saw my sister give birth. Like what else do you want from me?
Yeah.
And look, maybe I'm conflating my intentions with the work that I do with other people. So maybe I'm being a little bit gullible. But I also like, I'm here on this earth to like enjoy things. And so until I get to a point where the kind of work I do, and I do want to get to this point, is actually helpful in, you know, unconstructing, rethinking, reconstructing, whatever, reimagining the systems that create this stuff. I want to be able to do the work that I can with the best intention that I can, and also just enjoy stuff. Because like cynicism is lovely. It is lovely, but it's also not fun. And I do like to have a little bit of fun. So sometimes, and maybe that's like a really privileged, awful thing to say. And I suppose anybody who knows me knows that I don't mean it in like such a negative, I'm separated from the means of production or whatever.
To be
but
honest,
it's just,
this is something a few people have actually mentioned on this cast, and like sometimes I'll take it out or sometimes I'll leave it in when they do go like, oh, you know, like I'm privileged, and because they feel a little guilty that, you know, they do just want to enjoy their lives. Okay, you don't feel guilty, but it's still like, not that other people might resent them for it, essentially. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we do all have different kinds of privileges. Like the fact 100%. That you and I are doing this, we're privileged.
Exactly.
Like there's no way in hell like to deny that. But at the same time, it's like, what are you meant to do? Is if you, like, you know, are you meant to give penance? No, you're meant to try and use your privilege where you can to help others. Yeah. But at the same time, you've got to enjoy your life as well, or else. And also, like, to me, that's like wasting the privilege almost.
Exactly. Also, my chat is just like, I'm very invested in an equal and just society. I really am. Yeah. I really am. To my core, I'm invested in that. I'm at once aware that an equal and just society is made up of nice people and nasty people. Some people that I vibe with, some people that I don't vibe with. So I cannot really, for the rest of my life, in pursuit of the end goal, be at the mercy of all the shitty people that are in the way of getting there. Okay. So I think that it is a kind of double consciousness to live between this kind of individual trying your best and also a constant awareness of where you are. Are you either accumulating wealth or are you dispossessing somebody else? And which one can you live with? Because the minute you buy an iPhone, you're saying you can live with a whole bunch of like labor practices that don't make sense. So, you know, but when
you're making the purchase, you're not thinking about that.
No, of course not. You're in that vibe, and that's why I think people say like, "Oh my gosh, you know, we're about to vote, and I have no idea who I'm going to vote for." That's me right now. And I've been going to these panel discussions, but it's because 90% of my life is spent of me conceiving of myself as a consumer and not a citizen. I'm not thinking about referees removal every week. I'm not thinking about the national health insurance every week. So when I'm pressed upon in these next, however, you know, we have just about a month to go to now think about this, my construction of how I view my life and how I'm interacting with labor, how I'm interacting with capital is conceived as an individual in this veil of ignorance where everyone's equal, not as this person who has X amount of access and X amount of degrees. And you're
still, and the thing is, you're still doing what you think is best for you.
Yes,
you're not necessarily
exactly. Because is my vote really for the poor? Am I considering that? Is my vote?
Well, are you though?
What do you mean?
Like when you're going to vote, are you considering like what's best for the poor?
Of course. Because also, in as much as like, and this is also one of these things that people say, and when they say it, I think it's ridiculous, but I mean it, so I'm just gonna say it, and it can be taken however it likes. I am not, even in my lifetime, in the like my short 25 years on this earth, have had a completely transformative socioeconomic experience with my family. Like literally my family, my parents are, yes, extremely well educated people. Both came here with at least a master's degree and a PhD. But we did not have what we have now. And I even noticed that in the time between my sister and I, who are 5 years apart, that our experience of even just like getting things, like my sister would be like, "Can I have a Nintendo?" And my dad would be like, "Yeah." But like I used to have to like get an academic badge to see shit. You know what I'm saying? So I have seen the extreme relationship that can happen between your material surroundings and your access to capital. I get it. I completely get it. I don't get it to the extent that I've always been at a really good school. My parents have always worked incredibly hard and we've always had things. I'm not going to sit here like I'm not privileged as all hell. I am. But what I'm saying is that I understand the oscillation between what it feels like physically to be in a different socioeconomic space.
Oh, of course.
And how actually,
But
as
also,
you bring
like,
yourself up or out or whatever it is, because I don't believe in that linear idea of development, how you have to be so careful about what your relationship with money looks like once you start getting it.
Because of how other people perceive you.
And no, how you perceive other people. Because that's what I'm saying. When I go
'cause
to
you-
the
well, you
polls,
put
the more
yourself-
money I make, am I still worried about me when the way I lived 5 years ago?
Okay,
I'm
now I
like, that's
get
not
what-
me
now I get what you're
anymore.
going,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's not my problem. So I don't think about it. So at the end of the day, I can't separate myself from the experiences that I've seen, that I've witnessed, and I really don't believe in like being on Twitter and being like, oh my God, poverty is so sad. And like
Not doing
in
anything
whatever
about it.
intervention you have, and I'm not saying I'm the most active person, but if I have an opportunity, I take it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that is the thing to me. So you just got to use the privileges that you have to improve situations for yourself and other people. But, you know, the problem is when you abuse your privileges, or where you don't acknowledge them, or where you just think that everything in life came to you because you deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't deserve shit. Like,
No.
you do deserve stuff in certain, like, the word I'm trying to think of a better word than deserve, but like, because no one deserves anything. The world you don't deserve anything, not at all. Like, you get what you kind of take and kind of what you're given, like, you know, what the world, and that's it. We're all kind of lucky in playing the cards we're dealt. And so the frustration for me that comes is when that you got given two aces and an ace came up first, you know, like that's like literally, like if you're in Mount Edgecombe, like life's pretty fucking good for you, you know. And then when you start talking about like how, like, you know, you had to work for everything you got. Yeah, everyone has to work for everything they fucking get.
Yeah.
Like, you're still, you know, privileged.
And I have to work harder than you was also the fact, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, as a black woman, that is stuff that you go through. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
Like,
look, I think that there's also like, you know, these categories for me, I'm also very aware of like intersectional categories. So I'm also a black woman who, when I speak, my voice sounds like this.
Yeah.
And
So
I have
you've got-
and my parents have a certain degree of wealth that allows me to like have had my car paid off and my house paid off and all of that good stuff. But for me, that's my tipping point. You know how I say that there's a certain point at which you have to kind of figure out, okay, this thing is now coming at me. This is my reality. How am I going to respond to it, right? Advertising, whatever the case may be. Is like, I definitely think in the beginning, particularly of my career, where like I was making a little bit more money and I was experimenting with different things and I was working with different people and people were really like hyping my work and like paying me money. I definitely was like, yes, now I'm like a cool person who lives in Joburg and I can afford Sol and I'm just like so edgy. And then I was just like, I don't want to live the rest of my life like that. I remember seeing on a certain sneaker store in Joburg on their Instagram, they had posted these sneakers that were 17,000 Rand. And I was like, okay, even if I just had a random 17,000 Rand, I really hope I wouldn't spend it on sneakers. And I'm not shading anybody who does, because I have my own brand of dumb shit that I will spend it on.
like I would buy magic cards for
You know
17.
what I'm
I would
saying?
buy a magic card that's 17.
Whatever
grand.
your vibe is, like I don't even know what mine would be, but it would probably be in the realm of clothes, probably an Alexander Wang. Woof, that's where I would be. But my point is, I just like got to a point where I was like, money is rad, but what is the plan here? Because I think a lot of people, especially in the creative industry, and as much as there's a lot of people struggling, there's a lot of people who've put themselves on and nobody taught us how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, nobody taught us how to figure this out, because up until now, our success was measured by could we graduate and get a job. So now this new scenario that presents us of like this endless possibility where everybody is so bright and everybody's working so hard is rad, to the extent that you get what you asked for and then you can't survive it. You literally can't.
Yeah.
You're literally in debt. And that's why I had to take a moment for myself. And that's why the master's thing, which I started, not the master's thing, damn, the master's degree.
The master's thing.
Which started at the beginning of last year, was so good because I like went back to Grahamstown where there's like no Woolworths food and there's no McDonald's, and I don't want to be like, it was such a humbling experience, but like you start to need less. And I remember thinking, like, after leaving my job, I was like, how will I afford things? Like, because I was just getting my scholarship money and freelancing and doing other business stuff. But like, I was like, what am I going to do? And my life is so much better than it was when I had more money. Which is not to say I don't want to be richer than I am, because I have a bucket list, but I'm not obsessed with that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, so we're taking stock and looking at like what you really wanted. So what does the future hold for you?
A Cartier stack ring.
A Cartier stack ring.
Yeah. I mean, that's as
You
far
know
as
you want.
that's as far as I got. No, I think increasingly, because I was never also like a marriage and kids kind of person, but that started changing, and I'm like, oh, wild. And now I'm like, I'm 25, fuck, gotta freeze my eggs or something. So I mean, that's maybe need to freeze some eggs. I want to live out of South Africa at some point. So for me, it's always like, I know what experiences I want to have. I don't know what job I want to have. I don't know what kind of...
So you don't, like, in terms of career, you're just doing things, you're taking them
I'm
as they
literally
come.
just having the best time of my life. Are you kidding? Like, being an academic is so fun. Like, it's literally my job to just read things and think and like fight with myself and other people who are thinking about things. And then sometimes people ask me my opinion and I get to write my opinion for money. Like, it's amazing. I'm literally having the best time.
And so you're just going to write it out.
I'm just going to write it out. I think I do want to start doing more like socially aware and social political work, because I think if you do have a degree and you do have the ability to like impact younger people and like teach, which I also love to do, you should take it. And I would
especially
always,
because of someone like Charles, you know, like
yes,
taking
like,
you
yeah,
under
I
his
would
wing,
always
like,
take that space to like carry on whatever knowledge I have and be in service to. I love the idea of being fully in service with a happy heart to the things that you care about. But no, I'm not really like a let's change the world girl. Like, if I and I suppose maybe that's my kind of...
You want to have a positive impact. But
yes,
you, like, just
I'm not at like, let's... If I could eradicate world hunger, I would. But when I think about when God was like, Binwe, I don't know if I was high on that list of... But I mean, if I can... Yes, but if I can do stuff that allows me to have 500 million rand to give to world hunger, I mean, sick, you know what I mean? So
you see, I'm all about the each one teach one kind of philosophy of just like have an impact like immediately in front of you, you know, like don't, like, because that is how you change the world, is one person at a time.
Sure. But I think that I also like, I'm so aware of how distant communities, be they spiritual communities, church communities, whatever it may be, artistic communities, have from so far away had such a like radical impact on me that I'm like, I believe in like, small scale, but I also don't discount like what massive scale stuff can do, and how far reaching you can shout your positivity, you know. I
mean, you work in media. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I just think like, at this point in my life, I feel so peaceful and I feel so good and so happy. And like, even when I have a bad day, it's like, it's not like a bad life. I always say to people, it's not a bad week, it's not a bad life, it's a bad day. It's just a bad day. And from coming from a time where I was like so anxious and so wound up about like, what was I doing in my career and what will I do? And like, oh my gosh, is my work great? I still have that every day. But it accounts for like 2% of my day and not 82% of my day. And I feel like the work has gotten better. My relationships with people have gotten better. Because I'm just like, I can't do everything. Like, I literally had to just resign myself to the fact that I will not have perfect answers for everything. I will not be everyone's cup of tea. I will alienate some people into, you know, on purpose or accidentally. You know, I'm not for everyone. I'm also just not that personality where everyone wants to get down. Like, I'm not that girl. But I think that, like, where I am, like, mentally and spiritually and in my heart is, like, 100% in the right place. And, like, so I'm like, if you rock with that, cool, let's vibe. If you don't, that's also fine. Like, live your best life, babes. Wish you the best. But I'm not a Panarates. I'm not all things to all people, like, at all. So, yeah. I'm having a good time just doing what I feel like doing and hoping that it's like has a positive impact on other people. Yeah.
Sweet. I think we're done.
Yeah, rad. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That
Super
was
fun.
like, yeah, like I actually learned a lot there. Like,
Yeah.
didn't get into any of the stuff I thought we were going to, and just took it like, well, I did think we were going to talk about social media and stuff like that, but not as deep. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I was going to talk more about like, yeah, the growing up stuff, but I guess we'll have to do this again one day.
Yeah, we'll do it. I need to write some notes then because I have a shitty childhood memory, but yeah. Yeah.
Cool. We'll chat
Cool.
again soon.
Thank you. Later.